Hello. Um, Today I felt like I had the beginnings of an autistic shutdown um, at work. And I've been back to work since April of this year. So April, May, June, July, August, September. 6 months I've been doing quite well. But today I had the first occasion, familiar occasion, in a long while. And I hadn't felt this way in about a year or two since my last job. And so I basically felt like I had come to the end of my resources. And I pretty much felt like I had the wind knocked out of me. My productivity came to a standstill. And this was, right about closing time, a little bit after 5 or so. And so I end up, sitting at my desk, staring and trying to assess the situation. But too many variables, plus deadlines to keep. I suddenly felt myself feeling that I was out of control. Whereas for the last 6 months, I've felt pretty much on top of things. I have a few different things going on my desk load right now that are not resolving themselves. And my hands are tied as far as my functionality, but I have the skills and I have the knowledge to make things happen. But at the same time, I'm treading a thin line in regard to not overstepping this particular department's scope of influence or functionality. And so I've been getting different information from like a senior worker saying, no, don't do that. That's not our function. You need to get the function from them. From my manager, stating the same thing. So I'm not, I am not, I'm doing what my manager is telling me to do. But the situation is becoming worse. So when I see these things converging, and again, I have to remind myself that I'm always about 10 steps ahead of everybody else around me. So I already know what's going on and what the outcome is going to be. And when I see 3 different scenarios not working out, I begin to question whether I'm doing all that I can do, or if my autistic tendencies are causing the issues. So I begin to worry about that. Especially my ability to focus on things and to become obsessive about certain things. Not knowing when to let things go, following up on emails that probably should just be filed away into a folder. Not that I'm being aggressive, not that I am doing anything socially unacceptable, but that my persistence in following up on things is causing me to worry about more than I should. And so suddenly today it just hit me, and I felt this warm rush. I don't know how to explain it. Let down is what I could call it. A letdown, a sense of failure. Upset that I'm not being supported by my colleagues. Also, I'm very much aware of all of the pressures that everybody else at work are under. Despite what everybody else thinks about what I am aware of, I am very much aware of their scenarios. And I suppose what I need to do is stop. Well, I don't know how I can, because it is who I am. I am constantly putting myself in other people's situations and essentially feeling what I believe they're going through. But I'm not necessarily sharing this with those individuals. So today was frustrating. It was kind of one of those days when you get off work and you don't even want to get in the car and drive on the freeway, But then again, in order to take side streets home, it would take me, twice as long. But sometimes I want to just, it's like everything becomes a burden. And I pretty much, I feel like just waiting for everybody else to figure it out now, to figure out these different situations. And I feel like just sitting back and letting everything play itself out the way that I know it's going to play itself out. Then the other side of me says, Scott, don't get so drastic about these things. Tomorrow's a new day. Maybe you'll feel, maybe this is just a small dip in your emotional roller coaster. Maybe tomorrow you'll level out. So I hope that's the case. And so I definitely want to take more time to contemplate things, to meditate, to pray. I think about the story of Jacob, who worked for his uncle, and the Lord showed him what to do to be successful, how to raise successful herds of goats and livestock. And that is what I'm kind of wanting right now. I want the Lord to show me, how can I be successful at work? How can I prosper in what I put my hands to? Don't get me wrong, just yesterday my manager was praising me for my persistence in another area. And I know that I am well liked in this job. And I know that as far as my social aspects, like relationships with regard to my coworkers, those are all pretty firm-footed, So I'm not worried about small failures. I guess maybe I'm worried about nothing, but it's these tapes that continue to play in my head, where I'm sitting at a table in a meeting, and I feel like everyone's converging on me or something to that nature, and it's too much for me to have to deal with conflict on multiple fronts in that scenario, because I'm not as quick on my toes in those live situations unless I'm very well studied and prepared, to give an answer. I can be quick-footed, but the majority of the time, the regular Scott the regular Scott struggles to communicate efficiently and relationally and in short-worded answers at times. Or sometimes I give a yes or a no when I should be giving, a paragraph. It's hard for me to determine at times when somebody is asking me a question, what are they trying to elicit from me? Okay. Are they asking me to defend myself? Or are they simply asking me to give them, a matter-of-fact answer? And so those situations can be quite distressing for me. The only thing I take comfort in right now is that I do believe that my manager is probably autistic as well. Because I have seen her struggle in many of the same ways that I struggle. And I think that may be why she hired me. And I also suspect that a number of individuals in our department are autistic as well because of that manager who saw like-mindedness in those individuals and hired them as well. Yeah. So, if you're autistic or you have autistic tendencies and you're having trouble looking for work, pray that you can find somebody who is a manager, who's made it to a management position, who has autistic tendencies as well, and they will most likely hire you. most times not even really knowing that they are themselves autistic and that you are autistic. They just kind of see you as a like-minded individual who expresses himself in the same manner. What worries me is that I see my manager not being able to deal with certainly they deal with a greater amount of stresses than the workers under them, because they have to deal with all of the information flowing upwards and all of the fires that are continually having to get put out every day. What worries me is that my little situations on my desk load, which are basically 6 months old issues since I began working there. Maybe they're longer, but on my desk they're 6 months old, and they probably aren't like a high dollar value in some respects, but still I get worried about audits from third party companies, and my manager having to answer to her managers regarding her employees, in other words me. And being out of work for the last year, prior to this job, I don't look forward to going through the same cycle in my job that I had been done before. But essentially, today I was sitting in front of my email, and I had one too many emails in my inbox. I had one too many stacks of paper on my desk. I had too many open issues. And I had 3 major issues that 2 of which were, I felt, caused by the ineptitude of one other individual in another department, making all of our lives a little bit more difficult at work. But I looked at it all, and I had been discussing these things with a senior worker, and that worker finally came to the end of their graciousness, because they had enough of pressure on their own desk, being on the phone all day long, not being able to get any work done, so on and so forth. And basically that well dried up, so I wasn't able to get answers, because I'm relatively still new. And as an autistic individual, I have lots of questions about lots of things that other people don't question. So it can become quite overwhelming for those individuals that I work with, because every 10, 15 minutes I might be getting up and going over to their desk to ask them. But today I felt like, okay, that's it. I have no more resource. Nobody has the answers for me. I've hit the heart of difficulties that are at this particular job, and now the suffering is starting to begin. The stress. So somehow I need to find peace and time to pray and seek God. Because, certainly I have been in more stressful situations than this one. I guess what worries me is that I see the beginnings of it this time, because I'm always analyzing myself. I'm always taking stock of where I'm at. And I know where this pathway leads, even though nobody else sees it happening right now. I need to break this pattern. Not that I'm going to change myself or change my ways, but I certainly need to do something different so that my tendencies do not take me down the same pathway. I'm not saying I'll change my tendencies, but change the way I direct the energy of those tendencies on hyper-focus and obsessive thinking. So, yes, I'm very frustrated right now. I wish things weren't this way in the world. I see the same pattern, and it always comes back to too much work, not enough workers. So anyway, we'll leave it at that. God bless.